Hey everyone. Today we're talking about Tom Cruise. Yes, the guy who hangs off planes, jumps between buildings, and probably does his own dental work because he's that committed to authenticity. Look, we all know Tom Cruise is basically Hollywood's superhuman action figure come to life. The man's been sprinting across our screens for over 40 years, defying both gravity and aging. But here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Even Tom Cruise has made some absolute stinkers. And I'm not talking about meh movies. I'm talking about films so bad they make you wonder if his stunt was just showing up to set. So buckle up, because we're counting down the top 10 worst Tom Cruise movies. And trust me, some of these are so painful, even Tom's trademark smile couldn't save them. Let's dive in. Starting off at number 10, we have Days of Thunder, or as critics called it at the time, Top Gun with cars. Now before you get the pitchforks, hear me out. This movie isn't offensively bad, it's just so aggressively formulaic that it feels like Tony Scott and Tom Cruise just recycled their Top Gun playbook and swapped fighter jets for NASCAR. Roger Ebert literally mapped out the formula. Young hotshot with natural talent meets wise mentor, gets tutored, finds a mature female love interest, and faces off against rivals. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's literally the same plot as Top Gun, The Color of Money, and Cocktail. The film holds a 37% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with critics noting it had flash but suffered from stock characters and weak dialogue. And they're not wrong. Tom plays Cole Trickle. Yes, Cole Trickle. A name so ridiculous it sounds like it was generated by a NASCAR random name generator. The racing scenes were actually pretty solid, and Robert Duvall was great as the gruff crew chief. The romance with Nicole Kidman was about as exciting as watching paint dry on a race car. The whole thing just feels paint by the numbers, like everyone showed up, hit their marks, collected their paychecks, and went home. Despite the lukewarm reviews, it still made over $157 million at the box office, proving that in 1990, people would watch Tom Cruise do literally anything, even drive in circles for 2 hours. At number 9, we have Taps, one of Tom's earliest films where he plays a trigger-happy military school cadet, and boy does it show why he pivoted to action movies. This is essentially what happens when you give a bunch of military school kids access to weapons and way too much free time. The movie's premise is that students take over their academy to prevent it from closing, which sounds pretty dramatic, and it tries so hard to be that way. But instead of being a gripping thriller, it's more like a very serious after-school special that forgot to be interesting. The movie spends most of its runtime lecturing us about honor and duty, while teenage Timothy Hutton makes increasingly questionable decisions. Tom Cruise plays a gung-ho cadet who's basically itching for a conflict, and while it showcased some of his intensity early on, the film takes itself way too seriously. It's slow, preachy, and about as exciting as detention. The film drags on forever with students making speeches about principles while you're sitting there thinking, just call the police already. This is definitely an easy skip unless you're a completist who needs to say Baby Tom in every role. Even then, you might want to fast forward through most of it. At number 8, we have Losin It. And yeah, the apostrophe in the title should have been your first warning. This is one of those forgettable 80s sex comedies where horny teenagers road trip to Tijuana to, you guessed it, lose their virginity. Because apparently that was an entire genre back then. Losin It has all the charm of a bad hangover and none of the fun that caused it. The film does absolutely nothing that 100 other 80s sex comedies didn't do better, cheaper, and with more memorable one-liners. It's bland, it's forgettable, and it feels like a movie that was made because someone had a camera and a free weekend. The only fascinating thing about Losin It is that it came out the same year as Risky Business, which, you know, was the movie that actually made Tom Cruise a star. So while Tom was dancing in his underwear and becoming a cultural icon, this little disaster was quietly bombing in theaters. Coincidence? I think not. The universe clearly knew which Tom Cruise movie deserved the attention, and it sure as hell wasn't this one. At number 7 is Legend, directed by Ridley Scott, and somehow still a gorgeous disaster. Let me be clear, this movie looks incredible. The makeup effects that transform Tim Curry into the Lord of Darkness are legitimately Oscar-worthy. The cinematography is stunning, the production design is fantasy perfection. But here's the problem, it's also boring as hell. Tom plays a forest boy named Jack who has to save his love Lily from a demon who wants to kill the last unicorns because... reasons? The plot is paper thin, the characters are about as deep as a puddle, and Tom looks genuinely uncomfortable throughout the entire film. And then there's the score. The The original Tangerine Dream soundtrack is jarringly out of place. Imagine listening to 80s synth pop while watching Lord of the Rings. It's that weird. They later replaced it, but the damage was done. Legend is proof that you can have all the visual splendor in the world, but if your story is thinner than Tom's tunic in this movie, nobody's gonna care. It's beautiful to look at, but absolutely devoid of substance. It's no wonder Tom never touched the fantasy genre again. And honestly, that was a very smart move. At number 6 is Far and Away, the movie that asks the question, what if Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman did the worst Irish accents ever committed to film? And folks, they delivered on that promise. These accents are so bad, they make Lucky Charms commercials sound authentic. It's like they learned them from a drunk leprechaun who's been living in New Jersey for 30 years. The film follows 2 Irish immigrants chasing the American dream during the 1893 land rush. Ron Howard directed this, and bless him, he tried to make an old-school epic melodrama in the style of John Ford. The cinematography is gorgeous, the scope is ambitious, but the whole thing feels hollow. Tom and Nicole, who were married at the time, have zero chemistry. The story is predictable, the characters are simplistic, and the whole thing drags on for over 2 hours. It's pretty to look at, sure, but it's about as deep as a kiddie pool. Far and Away isn't offensively bad, it's just aggressively mediocre. And somehow, that feels worse. It's the cinematic equivalent of eating unseasoned chicken breast. It's technically edible, but why would you subject yourself to it? And plus, those accents, dear God, those accents. Even the actual Irish countryside couldn't save this one. At number 5, we have Vanilla Sky, Cameron Crowe's trippy, confusing remake that proves not everything needs to be remade. Now, Cameron Crowe directed Jerry Maguire, which is one of Tom's best films. So you'd think Vanilla Sky would be gold, right? And you'd be wrong. This is a perfect example of a director and a star getting too self-indulgent for their own good. The film is about a rich playboy who gets disfigured in a car accident, and then something lucid dreaming, reality questioning, is trying so hard to be deep and philosophical, but it mostly comes across as pretentious and confusing. It's like someone made Inception, but forgot to include the parts that made any sense. Tom feels completely miscast as the lead. This movie star charisma actually hurts the film rather than helps it. We're supposed to sympathize with this character, but it's hard when Tom Cruise's face is plastered all over the marketing. The whole time you're just thinking, that's Tom Cruise in a mask, and not, that's a tormented man questioning reality. The film throws twist after twist at you until you stop caring entirely. Is it a dream? Is it real? Is it a cryogenic sleep? Who cares at that point? By the end, you're so exhausted from trying to follow the plot that you just want it to be over. Cameron Crowe has the distinction of directing both one of Tom's best and one of his worst. Vanilla Sky is proof that even though it worked once, it doesn't mean it's going to work again. The movie is artsy-fartsy without the substance and confusing without the payoff. At number 4, we have Lions for Lambs, or as I like to call it, the film that killed Tom Cruise's drama career. After Tom's public image took some hits in the mid-2000s after some incidents, this Robert Redford film was supposed to be his comeback in this serious dramatic territory. Instead, it became a political lecture disguised as a movie. The film tries to tackle the war on Afghanistan through 3 interconnected stories, but it's so heavy-handed and preachy that you'll be rolling your eyes within the first 10 minutes. It's like someone turned a Facebook political argument into a 2-hour film, and somehow made it less entertaining. Tom plays a conservative senator trying to sell a new military strategy, and while his performance is fine, the script is absolutely dreadful. Everything feels smug and self-satisfied. The movie knows it's making important points and can't stop congratulating itself for it. The 3 storylines never gel together properly. You've got Robert Redford as a professor lecturing a student, Tom Cruise as a senator lecturing a journalist, and 2 soldiers trapped on a mountain in Afghanistan. It cuts between these stories with all the grace of a sledgehammer, beating you over the head with its message. Critics savaged it, audiences ignored it, and it marked the end of Tom doing straight drama. He went full throttle into blockbuster action mode after this, and honestly, it was the best decision for him and probably his wallet. Lions for Lambs is consistently ranked as one of the worst films in Tom Cruise's entire filmography. It's boring, it's preachy, and it's insufferably self-important. And number 3 is Rock of Ages, the movie that proves Tom Cruise singing shirtless can only save you from so much disaster. And let's get one thing straight. Tom Cruise's performance as a washed-up rock god Stacey Jacks is really good. He's hamming it up, channeling Axl Rose and Jim Morrison, singing his heart out to Def Leppard, and clearly having the time of his life. If the entire movie was just Tom being a ridiculous rock star, it would have been fantastic. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie exists. Rock of Ages is based on a Broadway musical, and it's one of those jukebox musicals where characters randomly break into 80s rock hits, which would be fine, except the 2 lead actors have the combined charisma of a stale cracker. They're pretty, sure, but they're so boring you'll pray for Tom to come back on the screen. The plot is aggressively predictable. Boy meets girl on Sunset Strip, they fall in love, they break up over a misunderstanding, they get back together, the end. The only difference in this one is everyone singing Bon Jovi. The movie is also way too long. It drags on for over 2 hours, which is about 45 minutes longer than it needed to be. Every time you think it's wrapping up, there's another musical number. The film flopped hard at the box office, making only about $38 million, despite costing way more than that to produce. It's too long, too loud, and too bland, which is quite the achievement for a movie about rock and roll. Tom Cruise deserved better. We all deserved better. At number 2, we have Cocktail, the movie that won a Razzie for Worst Picture and still made over $170 million. Let that one sink in. Cocktail is peak 1980s excess in all the worst ways. Tom Cruise plays a bartender who juggles bottles, makes drinks with flair, and dreams of getting rich quick. That's pretty much it. There's barely a plot here, just Tom looking pretty, spinning bottles, and hooking up with various women. The movie was destroyed by critics and won Razzies for Worst Picture and Worst Screenplay. Even Tom himself later admitted it wasn't a highlight of his career. When the star thinks it sucked, you know you're in trouble. But here's the kicker. People loved it anyways. It made bank at the box office despite being critically destroyed. Why? Because in 1988, people apparently just wanted to see Tom Cruise smile and flip bottles set to a killer 80s soundtrack featuring Beach Boys hits. The film is shallow, dramatically inert, and squanders Tom's talents completely. It's a fantasy where being good-looking and charming solves all your problems. There's a subplot about Tom's character wanting to open his own bar, but the film barely addresses the actual business realities. Suddenly, just has a bar in Jamaica, because who needs logic when you have Tom Cruise's teeth? The romance is laughable. Tom's character treats women terribly throughout most of the film, but then he meets Elizabeth Shue and suddenly learns to be a decent human being. The transformation is about as believable as those bottle flipping tricks. Cocktail is bad, objectively, provably bad, but it made Tom a bigger star anyways, which is the most 80s thing that ever happened. And the worst Tom Cruise movie of all time is The Mummy. Universal's hilariously failed attempt to launch a Dark Universe cinematic franchise. Oh boy, where do I even start with this one? Universal looked at Marvel's success and thought, hey, let's start our own shared universe. And then they kicked it off with this. The film is an absolute mess of tones, jumping erratically between genres. Is it a horror movie, an action movie, comedy, romance? Who knows? Because the movie sure doesn't. Nothing gels together properly. Tom Cruise's character is completely generic. He could be played by literally any other action star and it wouldn't matter. There's nothing distinctive about him, no personality, no memorable traits. He's just a generic action guy. Russell Crowe shows up as Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde to set up future movies. That will never happen. The film was so committed to world building and setting up sequels that it forgot to set the foundation. It's like going to a restaurant where the waiter spends an hour describing tomorrow's menu while your food gets cold. And the color palette. Everything is bathed in this depressing gray and murky darkness. It's like they filmed the entire thing during an eclipse in a coal mine. The Mummy crashed and burned so spectacularly that Universal immediately canceled all the other plans for the Dark Universe. It had become a punchline before it even began. Cruise's star power couldn't save this train wreck, and honestly, you'd kind of feel embarrassed for him watching it. This is a man who does his own stunts, who hangs off planes, who literally broke his ankle mid-take and kept filming. And this is what all that dedication went toward? A soulless corporate franchise starter that died on arrival? The Mummy is the worst Tom Cruise movie because it represents everything wrong with modern blockbuster filmmaking. Style over substance, franchise building over storytelling, and corporate synergy over creativity. It's not just bad, it's aggressively, insultingly bad. And there you have the 10 worst Tom Cruise movies, scientifically ranked by how much they make us want to question our life choices. Look, Tom Cruise has made some incredible films. Top Gun, the Mission Impossible movies, Jerry Maguire, the list goes on. But every actor has their stinkers, and Tom is no different. So which one of these do you think is the worst? Did I miss any? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this roast session, smash that like button and subscribe for more snarky movie content.